Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there.
And Sirianni, let's face it, I mean, you talk about a team leaking oil right now. Holy shit.
So let's talk. I have it written down. So if you did not watch the Eagles in Arizona, I'm going to throw some numbers out for people. Arizona had the football for 39 and a half minutes, 32 first downs, 6.2 yards a play. Kyler Murray, and you know I love Kyler. I know he plays too many video games. I freaking love that guy.
Great talent.
Oh my God. It's like Chris Paul in his prime. It's like, it looks easy. It's just,
Crazy.
he is. So, I'm watching that game. So that was one of my favorite bets of the week, like 12 and a half. I'm like, I'm sorry, Arizona. And this game was funny because you saw Arizona control late. Arizona controlled early. They just had that touch. The Eagles got that 95 yards. Pick six. But Arizona I thought was in control. This game didn't feel as close. And I look at Nick Sirianni, and my takeaway was they struggled early. Then he let Shane Steichen call the plays. They were great. Shane Steichen leaves. They struggle. Is that Sirianni may be one of those head coaches? Now, we know Mike Tomlin isn't this, and we know Pete Carroll isn't this, and we know Andy Reid isn't this, or McVay. But there have been head coaches that need a great coordinator or a great play caller. And, when Dan Quinn lost Kyle Shanahan, pre and post, not the same coach. And I look at Nick Sirianni, and your point, they're leaking oil. Some of these are personnel issues on the defensive side. But I think I'm more bothered by the inconsistency of the offense. I don't know. Have they had 4 good quarters of offensive football this year? I don't think they have.
I think relative to the contract and the hype coming in, Jalen's had a bad season. Now, some of it's injuries, but they have not looked good. And it's not a lack of talent. I mean, they got guys everywhere. I always struggle with CEO head coaches, especially younger guys. Like, what are you hanging your hat on? Like the one thing with John Harbaugh, CEO head coach, he's a tough guy. So his teams are going to be tough. When you get him the right coordinators, they're going to be really tough to deal with, right? Now he has a great offensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator. The Ravens are kicking everyone's ass. What's Sirianni hanging his hat on? Like motivation? Like, is that what he's doing? He knows nothing about defense. Right. And like you said, so he's an offensive guy, wide receiver coach that side of the ball. Well, he's clearly not influencing anything. I'm telling you, that place is a pressure cooker.
Yes.
This thing is an all-time unraveling. Now, they're going to play a road playoff game. Now, they're going to be the 5 seed, so they'll play Tampa or New Orleans. If they lose that game, though, I mean, are you just – they have a lot invested into a lot of people. This is an organization that has no problem spending a lot on assistant coaches.
Yep.
And never forget, they lost to Gannon today. They went after the Cardinals for Gannon because he got hired late. They wanted to hire Vic Fangio, but Vic's like, I can't wait around. What's going on? So he takes the Miami job. Losing to Gannon today, of just all the people to lose with, because of all the bad teams, the Cardinals are easily the hardest to play because of that little guy. I mean, he's on a different level than the Giants and all these the Washington team. But to lose to Gannon at home, given what's on the line, I think they're going to be like, is Sirianni in any trouble if they were to lose in the first round of the playoff game? I mean, this was a team that gave their quarterback all this money. And let's face it, had hopes of being at worst being in the NFC Championship game and being on the cusp of the Super Bowl again.
They lose their defensive coordinator. Where did their pass rush go? They lose their offensive coordinator. Their giveaways have exploded. Like, clearly they're not as buttoned up. And by the way, Nick, and I think it hurts Nick, can come off as a little juvenile.
Yeah.
On the sidelines.
I also think you got to be in the great coaches in the history of the league, right? Walsh, Belichick, Andy's good at this. Being very careful with older players and doubling down. Like last year, James Bradbury, they probably should have just moved on. But they were so close. They brought everyone back on defense, and now it's a disaster, right? And they're paying Bradbury and Slay. Slay's hurt. Bradbury's not any good. So you have some older players making a lot of money. You have to play them, but they're simply not good enough. And you watch today, their defense is just soft. I mean, beside the defensive linemen, their back seven is awful. I mean, Kyler and James Conner made them look like a 4 or 5 win team. And let's face it, their point differential, I looked before we hopped on.
Yeah, not good.
is basically right around like teams like Tampa, Houston, Indy. The Saints, for example, have double. I mean, they're a team that's going to win 11, 12 games. Their point differential is 22. They're a pretty average team with a record that probably is a little different than the actual team we've watched through the 4 months of the year.
Yeah, and we knew it. I mean, I said before the year, I said they're going to lose significantly more games. They're playing much better quarterbacks on their slate. They lose two great coordinators. Some of this was predictable, but one of the things I've always appreciated about Philadelphia, and I just love the Northeast and how much they love football. I just love Baltimore, and I love Buffalo, and I love all these teams that just care. Philadelphia won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles hit the road. Doug Peterson hit the road. Carson Wentz, MVP, hit the road. He was having a great year. This franchise, and this is very rare, they're the opposite. Same state, opposite mindset of the Steelers. They're not loyal to anything. And I think it's because the Rooneys are Pennsylvania. Jeffrey Lurie's got Hollywood ties. He's more global. His thing is, man, this is big business. And I don't think Sirianni would get fired, but I think they give him one more chance, on coordinators. And I know people say, boy, that's a dubious way to do business, but say this about the Steelers. They're going to be loyal to Pickett to the end. Mason Rudolph comes in and figures out, I'm going to throw the ball to Pickens every time I can. Pickett, Kenny Pickett would go a half without targeting him. Rudolph's like on the sidelines for the last 3 months going, he's the TJ Watt and Pickens, our two best athletes. Throw it to him every time you can. And it's like, oh, it's not that complicated. So I don't know if he's in trouble, but, Jalen Hurts is one of those I'll support him because I think he has a Dak quality, and I like this quality. I don't think he either throws the ball like Matt Stafford or Mahomes or Allen.
No.
But there is something to be said about intangibles and leadership and a grown-up and an adult. And Jalen does, in a raucous environment, to your point, a highly pressurized environment. He's kind of a centered kid. And I do think Philadelphia ate Carson Wentz alive, eats coaches alive, Chip Kelly. I do think Jalen, I don't think he's an A-plus talent. But I do think he's a very centered guy, and I think Dak is. And there is value in these pressurized Cowboy Eagle markets.
I think Jalen, in a weird way, is the least of their worries because of that. But where it does impact you is once that cap hit starts kicking in, I need, once your cap hit right now, the first year of the contract is lower as you go, Dak's played better, right? Kirk Cousins got better as he got more expensive. You're going to need Jalen. Like, I need you to be a Pro Bowler every year because we're going to have to skim at some other positions. But to me, the downfall of the Eagles this year, especially their defense has fallen off a cliff. I mean, they feel like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I think they have I think they're in major trouble come the playoffs. I mean, they have no momentum. There's just a lot of negativity. You know how that city gets. Everyone's going to start coach and just all the weird stuff. Matt Patricia now. And legitimately, just from a personnel, they're just not very good. Like, they can't cover you. So I can give you the motivation. I can give you the scheme. If I can't cover a guy one-on-one, and they cannot. I mean, Kyler and James Conner, they look like, Steve Young and Walter Payton out there today. It was crazy.